if you aimed to improve by 1% daily, by the end of the year, you will be amazed at how much you would have grown as a person. So that is what I believe that principle of compound interest, exponential growth actually represent. And hence I said it's not just finance leaders, but actually everyone. Yeah. When you actually get into leadership, you realize that it's not that black and white. You realize that leaders are faced with multiple decisions that they need to make. And most of the time, the resources that are available are not enough for them to do everything else. Therefore, they need to prioritize and they need to compromise. But for you to be able to win in life, your mental strength and resilience is of absolute great importance. If people can conquer your mind, or if circumstances can conquer your mind, you will collapse. But if you are able to bounce back, you will forever be in a position to conquer and push further. Advocate for yourself unapologetically so. I had to say it. You must advocate for yourself unapologetically so. I believe that depending on where you grew up, we always grew up of my work must speak for itself. Ladies, it's not about the work speaking for itself. It's about advocating for your work. People knowing what you do, how you do it, and how brilliant you are.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to INbrief, a podcast by the Institute of Internal Auditors. This is where we share stories, ideas, and all things that affect the internal audit profession. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and we really hope you enjoy this journey with us. Today's episode, we continue celebrating women within the internal audit industry. I will be in conversation with Molebogeng Masakona, who is the Chief Financial Officer, Trade Finance, CIB at Standard Bank, as well as one of our board members. Molebogeng, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone else.
So let's start off. Tell us a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Your schooling? Yeah, just give us a brief background.
Well, I grew up in Mabopane. Some of it call it Mabopline. It's actually in the north of Pretoria, approximately 30 minutes outside of Pretoria. I am the only girl. I've got 2 older brothers as well as 2 younger brothers. I always say to everyone, I'm a woman of God. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a Glemmy, I'm an aunt, Kerakadi. So that's me in terms of a brief background of where I'm from. And yeah, currently married to the love of my life, Molebogeng Masakona.
Okay. And your schooling, primary school, high school?
So
where did you
my primary school, I actually studied where I stayed in my community in Mabopane. And for my secondary or high school, as we call it in today's terms, I went to Holy Trinity Secondary School in Winterveld. So for everyone else, I'm not your multiracial, no, I'm not that one. But yes, that's where I actually schooled and studied. Yeah.
So manyana ko Pitori.
Ke ngwanyana ko Pitori straight.
That's beautiful, man. Yes. And then growing up, Mabopane, what did you want to be when you grew up, back in those days?
Those that know me know that I actually wanted to be a teacher. My dad and my mom were teachers, and my mom later on became a lecturer. And with that influence, on Saturdays, we actually used to have a Saturday school at my house. The older sisters, if I call them, or ladies that I played with in Mabopane, would come to my house. And for some reason, they would allow me, the youngest, to be the teacher. And then I would get pens and books from my parents. So for the longest of time, I actually wanted to be a teacher until I saw how much they make. And I have all the respect for teachers because I think without them, we'll be nowhere. And I was like, nah, I'm sorry, I can't go that way.
Oh, wow. And then where does your career in finance begin? How do we get to where we are now?
I'm in finance, but for those that know me, you'd know that I'm actually an internal audit by heart. So I did my undergrad and my postgraduate in internal auditing at the University of Pretoria. So where I am now is not where I started. I started in internal auditing, moved to first line of defense and worked in the business, and now in the finance space.
In the finance space. Yeah. Okay. So how did you move from wanting to become a teacher and then changing because of salaries and etc. So when did you decide, okay, I'm going to go into the finance or get the commerce, or when did that shift change from wanting to become a teacher to then going on to study something else at varsity, etc.?
So that actually happened in high school. So my uncle actually wanted, back then, and I guess even now, it was all about CAs. So I didn't know about internal auditing. So my uncle actually wanted me, or most of us in the family, to be CAs. And at least he did get one. My younger brother is a qualified CA.
Okay,
so that's where it actually then moved. So when I was in high school, he was like, guys, we need to be, we need CAs. There were small businesses in our family, and therefore that's where it actually started. It was when I was in matric where they selected a number of students from our high school to go to the open day at the University of Pretoria, when we were at the Economic Management and Sciences faculty open day, that we then learned about internal audit. So you then had the three choices. I had CA, I had internal audit, then I had economics as the three. So that's where it actually started. And I guess in terms of career moves, and one of the greatest decisions I've made, I've always felt that to be a better internal auditor, you need to walk in the shoes of the people that you are auditing. So I always had a plan that after a certain number of years in internal audit, I will move to a business role. And that's actually happened. And the plan was, I was then in internal audit for about 10 years. And then I would do my MBA, which I successfully completed at Gibbs.
Okay.
And after that, immediately, then I actually moved into first line of defense. I then became the head of pricing and billing for Transaction Banking South Africa at Standard Bank. And I was there for 4 years. And then 4 years later, then an opportunity in finance presented itself because of, as I've mentioned, I do feel that if we are going to be strategic partners, if we are going to add the value that we speak about into the organization, it is of absolute importance that we actually walk in the shoes of the people, the auditees, the people we actually audit. And that is actually how I've now moved from a third line of defense, so people call it, to now being in finance. And it has been a huge eye-opening experience and a great learning.
Oh, wow. We'll get into that shortly. But now I wanted to ask you, now that you were talking about you didn't really know internal audit that much, do you think it's changed though now? Do you think it's more visible? I know now we've got Bosia, Kula and stuff. We're trying to be more present at universities and technical and stuff. So from your perspective, do you think more learners coming from high schools are more aware of internal audit, or do you think it's still mainly CA, or we showing up now more than back then?
I need to commend what the institute has done. I do think that looking back at when I was in high school versus now, I do think that the internal audit profession has become more elevated than what it was. We could always be better. As human beings, we are never satisfied. But if I look at the visibility of how we are, now we see our CEO on the news, on television. We also see a lot of advertising on social media, be it LinkedIn, be it Facebook, be it Instagram. So for me, I do personally believe, and I also believe that with the stats that are around, you can see the visibility. But we want more. We want to not have to think, do I know? It needs to be to the point with TA,
Yeah.
people knowing that there's a designation or there is a profession called internal auditing, and that's what I could pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's never too much awareness, you can
Never.
always- yeah.
Never.
And then looking back, or even now, who would you say, okay, maybe looking back, who would you say was the first person to believe in you or to see potential in you, just to see something in you?
It is actually my family. So I'd always say it's my father and my brothers. And the reason I say that is because despite my upbringing, I do not come from a very well-off family, they always made sure that they helped me attain the dreams that I had. Simple example, I used to do ballroom dancing. And ballroom dancing is not a cheap sport for those that know. The dresses are very fancy, the shoes, the lessons you'd have to pay per hour. And my dad actually helped, and together with my older brother, they actually helped me in pursuing that all the way till when I was in university. And when I even got to university, and in those cases, we didn't have the financial means, I did get financial aid. But on top of that, my brothers collectively actually made sure that I continued to study. I always tell people that I'll never forget this moment when I was in honors. And my older brother actually came with a bank guaranteed check to come and give it to me so that I could pay school fees. And I always reflect on that moment because I look at where he was and what he could have done with that money. But instead of actually doing that, he came, he gave me that money to make sure that I complete my honor studies. My younger brother, with his tutoring money when he was in varsity, I'll be like, ish, my brother ke changing upa, you know. So even my second brother who paid for my accommodation when I was in honors. So you can see the collectiveness of how they ensured that I land up where I am. And I say those are the people that actually believed as who actually from the start.
From the start,
Yes.
Yeah, so important.
And now my husband, he's like my biggest fan.
Of course. Of course. How can we leave the husband out?
Yes.
Okay. And then staying with the theme of looking back, when you look at your career up to now, what would you say was the one, maybe two most important decision that you've ever made?
It's what I touched on earlier, which is the decision to move from internal audit to business and now to finance.
Okay.
And it will also make sense later when I speak about the legacy. I continue to say this, and everybody that's known me in the audit profession, because I always say I'm an auditor at heart, and hence I'm still so affiliated and I'm still so involved with the profession. I believe that it is such an important task, or rather it's such an important journey for one to take to be a better auditor. It doesn't mean that you can't be excellent if you don't do it. But for me, that was actually the best decision that I did for my career. The exposure has literally come in a way that I could never imagine. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now just to wrap up, getting to know you, we're going to play a quick game of quick fire questions.
Okay.
We're just going to wrap up this section of getting to know you before we get into the deep stuff. So I'm going to ask you just basic questions. You choose one or the other. You can explain if you want. You can just give your answer and that's it. It's not deep. It's not that deep. We just want to get to know you a little bit more.
No problem.
Are you ready? I think it's 9 questions. Okay. So heels or sneakers in the office?
Heels.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Right. Call or text?
Text.
Coffee break or power walk?
Power walk.
Books or podcasts?
Books.
Meetings or deep work?
That's a bit of both, because I love engaging with people. So I believe meetings gives us the opportunity to collaborate. But also in the spaces that I'm in, you need to be involved in deep work.
To focus.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Netflix or YouTube?
More Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. Work from home or office vibes?
I'm also a bit of both because once again, I
Hybrid.
love engaging with people. I enjoyed COVID, but I'm one of those that actually enjoy being at the office and connecting with people.
You need a bit of
So it's a
interaction.
hybrid for me, like 60% in the office.
And there's a rest. Yeah, no? Yeah, that makes sense. And then the last one, mentorship or sponsorship.
Sponsorship.
Yeah. Can you delve a bit further into that? Because I was speaking to Refilo on our last podcast.
Yes.
And she was like, yeah, I don't get mentorship. I prefer sponsorship. And I was telling her that, I've only ever experienced mentorship. I don't know much about sponsorship. And she was telling how important sponsorship actually is the higher you climb the corporate ladder. So can you just explain, just if you can, just a little bit for
Absolutely.
those that, yeah.
And Refilo I believe she's actually right. Depending on where you are. So mentorship will always be there. However, as you start to move more into higher roles in your organization, sponsorships also become critical. I've always said that, for specific roles, the higher you go, they don't they would advertise it, if we call it, but there'll always be a couple of people in mind because there is obviously a niche and we're looking for specific things. And as a result, people will always remember those that are at the tip of their tongue. And your sponsor is the person that speaks about you in closed doors. Remember, sponsorships is internal, so that person can help speak, promote you, and open the doors in the areas where you want to grow. Mentorship doesn't have to be internal. Most people you'll find, like myself, my majority of my mentors are actually outside of Standard Bank. So as a result, that's why you'll see that depending on where you are in your career, one might take precedence over the other. But overall, as you start to climb the corporate ladder, sponsorships become absolutely critical. You do need those people that will back you. You do need those people that will actually speak on your behalf in those closed rooms or closed boardrooms when decisions are being made about there's a big project coming. Who is the person that we think actually has the courage or the necessary knowledge and experience to be involved in it?
Yeah, it makes sense actually when you explain it like that. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So now we're gonna get into the deeper questions. Now your career, legacy, all of that. The fun stuff is
No problem. Yes.
So the first question I'm gonna ask you is, what does a typical day look like for in your role as a CFO, trade finance? What just the highlight, Dingy?
So in my household now it's known. I won't speak of a typical day, but there is a term called month end. I'm sure you might have heard of it, especially from your finance department. That week is actually a week of one, you are reviewing the financial performance of the previous month, comparing it to prior month, comparing it to prior year. There's analysis that is being done. You're trying to actually also see whether in relation to the strategy as well as the KPIs that have been set, are we still on par? Are we exceeding? Are we lagging behind? So that week is actually a week of review. It's actually a week of deep analysis. It's actually a week of partly forecasting to see that at the current run rate, are we going to make the targets at the end of the year? And most importantly, it's then a week of storytelling as CFOs. So I'm currently leading in our workplace the cost optimization program. And with that, we are looking at how do we optimize cost? Are we within our budget? Are we going to make this target that we are trying to reach? If not, what are the things that we need to do? So there's a lot of engagement in that month end, or rather we say post month end. So that first week is a lot of analysis, understanding where we are. And after that, the second week has to do a lot with engagement with our stakeholders, trying to actually help them see where we are, where we're going, and what we actually need to do. So that is the most stressful time. And then there's quarter ends, where you do quarter business reviews and so on, half year and full year and budget. But that's what typical days actually look like in the life of a CFO for trade finance.
But do you enjoy what you do? Like, if after all that explanation, you have to have some kind of, I can imagine if you didn't enjoy your work and you had to do that. Do you have a love for it?
I
Do
do.
you still enjoy it?
I do. And the foundation of internal audit is one that has really helped me to actually get here. I do enjoy what I do. I always believe that you might never be completely happy, but I do. The most important thing in what being in finance has taught me is actually understanding how the organization actually works. At the heart of it, there's a number of things that, whether we like it or not, are driven by the financial impact. And therefore, for us to be able to do well in our learning and development and grow our people, finances are needed.
Yeah.
For us to scale the products that we're selling, finance is involved. For us to buy items that we need to help us scale, to help us be better and be competitive, finance. So it actually helped me understand how everything pulls together and how I believe that actually a finance department is at the heart of an organization. And once again, I always tie it back to internal audit. If I'm going to be a great auditor, or if I'm going to be a chief audit executive in the future, it's important for me to understand how the business works, how budgeting is done, how we fund, how we optimize costs. And that has been, and therefore, there's no ways you can enjoy it because you are learning. And for us, you need to always be curious and learn. And that's what I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying the learning. I'm enjoying seeing the work that I do translate into the financial statements that are actually published. It might be something small, but when I see the KPI around cost to income ratio for the transaction banking business, I know that I've been involved in contributing towards that. So that is a very proud moment that you get to see where it actually adds.
Yeah, you're contributing to something bigger.
Something
You're smaller
bigger
than
than just, my smaller
It's making a difference,
sitting
you know?
there. Yeah, it's making a difference.
Sleepless nights,
It's a key KPI that analysts are actually looking at.
Yeah.
And I know that for the business that I support, I'm heavily involved in that. Yes.
Yeah. We were saying, I can't remember with who earlier, we were saying actually internal audit should be, is very important. It should be part of every module, etc. because it actually teaches you about the different sectors within business. So you come in already knowing what marketing does, what such and such. So it's if you want to be well-rounded, internal audit is actually quite important.
Absolutely.
In that aspect.
And hence, I always give credit, and I love this profession. It's for that. It's one of the professions that gives you exposure to the entire value chain in the business in which you might be auditing. Versus, like for example, now I'm in finance. It is quietly centered around financial statement, quite deeply around financial matrices, as well as controls and risk. However, with internal audit, you audit finance, you audit the business,
You have
marketing,
to know.
you audit human resources. One could actually say it's like an MBA, because MBA is a general management program that gives you aspects of how to manage an organization across different areas. So you get to do all of these things. You might not be an expert, but it gives you a good enough knowledge for you to be able to be a good overseer and manager.
Yeah, makes sense. And then if you weren't in finance, or let's just say internal auditing in general, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'd be a ballroom dancer.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't get to do dancing anymore, but it was a key part of my life. It shaped me a lot in terms of who I am, the confidence, the ability to go and perform in stages, national championships in South Africa. That really starts to shape you as an individual. And time management, it's the small things that we don't really see, but being in sports brings a certain level of discipline, the ability to compete, the ability to collaborate, the ability to present yourself in front of people. So I loved it so much. And not to mention, like I said, I always loved the dresses, the glitz of the dresses,
the glam.
get to do all of that wearing a 2.5 to a 3-inch heel. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, it's something else. And it's amazing to watch as well when someone else is doing it. It's crazy. Yes. And then what is the one thing that you think all financial leaders should master? Leaders in finance.
Yes,
Or
not just leaders, right?
Mm.
There is the term called compound interest. If there is one thing I believe every single one of us needs to master, is that it's not just about investing your finances for you to get, the necessary interest, but it's a principle around small or rather daily improvements that you can also do as an individual, such as if you look at Atomic Habits, they speak of daily improving yourself. So for me, that whole principle around exponential growth speaks to us as human beings overall, understanding that if I improved myself 1% daily, this would lead to me being a much better leader overall. If I saved 100 rands and did not take out the interest, over time it will grow. If I read 2 pages a day, over time I would actually cultivate or rather capture quite a lot of the knowledge. So for me, I believe that is one of the key principles that every single person, and not just financial leaders, should actually capture.
Wow,
understand.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it makes sense. Hey, 2 pages, but yeah,
2 pages.
Actually, when you break it down,
yes, if you just did, Atomic Habits is such a great book, and a lot of people have read it. But there's also different. They speak about the 1% daily improvement. If you aimed to improve by 1% daily, by the end of the year, you will be amazed at how much you would have grown as a person. So that is what I believe that principle of compound interest, exponential growth actually represent. And hence I said it's not just finance leaders, but actually everyone.
Yeah, I'll take that as well. Learn something new every day.
Checking you.
Yeah. And then what is the one thing about leadership that surprised you, or that, I don't know, took you like that you didn't know that you now know, that maybe has changed the way you see leadership?
I must say, when you were a junior, it was so easy to point up and say, they're not hiring us. Why are they making this decision? Why didn't they do this? When
Squeeze
you
us in.
actually get into leadership, you realize that it's not that black and white. You realize that leaders are faced with multiple decisions that they need to make. And most of the time, the resources that are available are not enough for them to do everything else. Therefore, they need to prioritize and they need to compromise. And you won't always be the popular one, or you won't always make the popular decisions. That for me has been an eye-opening aspect around leadership. That as much as, you want to save the world, as much as you want to change everything, unfortunately, you cannot do it all at once. You will have to stagger, you would have to prioritize, particularly given the limited resources. It's always about the availability of resources. And I believe for me, that was the biggest one. So now I take it with a pinch of salt. Whenever certain things that I don't want actually didn't happen, I understand that and give that credit to the leader to say, given what they knew, what they had, they did the best that they could with what was available. And I move on from there. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was gunning for the promotion, I didn't get it, or I wanted an increase, I'm still going to be like, But back, I know that it's not always easy. They are faced, being a leader, you are faced with tough decisions every day. And no matter what it is, you cannot always satisfy everyone.
And how do you keep your team motivated during times like that, or even yourself during like difficult times like that? How do you make sure everyone is we're still pushing and going towards the same goal? Because it can be demotivating, you know?
It's tough. It's very tough. I'm not going to lie. It is tough, but it's also quite fulfilling. But to answer your question, there is a book by Simon Sinek. And it's saying starting with the why. For me, it's that. It's always reminding the team, the people I work with, the teams I've worked with in the past, why we are doing what we are doing, and the importance of us persevering. So that's the one aspect. The second piece for me is, I always say, being in the trenches with the team. So you might not necessarily be capturing work for them, but if you guys are going through a season like we do, whatever, it could be budgeting or month end, or when I was in pricing and billing, we had different things, or when I was in audit, but continuously checking in. If people are working 8 to 10 hour days for a week, and you just come in once a day to check in on them, they will be demoralized. But from time to time, when you are reaching out to the team, hey guys, how are you doing? Is there anything that you need from me? Are you stuck somewhere? They feel it. They feel that this leader is with us in the room. They are not just left to navigate on their own and deal with everything and unblocking the challenges that they are facing. So the constant check-ins for me has been that. So it's the why, the constant check-in, and they know that I'm accessible. So if you are experiencing a challenge, just text me, just call me, and let's try work through it together. So that's how. For me personally, still more or less the same. The why. And then like I said, I really have a great partner whom and my husband, that we share quite a lot. So he's always one of those people that from time to time just puts a mirror in front of me and say, look at the person that has come here and remember, why is it that you're doing what you're doing?
I think it also helps, like, when you know that someone cares, sometimes beyond the work that you do for them, when you're in a difficult space and you can talk to someone, even if you don't tell them the details, you just that there's someone that you can just WhatsApp quickly and they care. So then when the difficult times come, it's easier to push together. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then have you ever had to reinvent yourself professionally?
I have. I shared that I left internal audit, where you are reviewing or auditing businesses, writing audit findings, and walking out gracefully for the business to resolve them. And I had to now be on the other end, where now I am the recipient of those audit findings, and I had to resolve them. So that I had to reinvent myself in the manner in which how I used to operate and what I needed to do to actually be successful in that role. And once again, when I moved from first liner from my business role into finance, I had to reinvent myself, because in finance, once again, it's whereas in business you might be doing things monthly, for example, in internal audit, we used to have back then when things have moved quite quickly, quarterly reporting. And then when I went to business, every month we were there. You need to, sometimes even weekly, depending on the projects that you're doing. Some even take longer. And then in finance, like I've mentioned, every month is month end. And so therefore, I've constantly had to reinvent myself to be able to adapt into the spaces that I'm in.
Okay. And then is there something new that you've learned recently or read? Because I can see we've got 2 books out of your that excited you, or a quote or something new that you learned that just got you excited.
There is, and it wasn't new, because I have my second child, and it was quite interesting how being a mother of 2 is now completely different. But in that, and even with the challenges of being a new mom, I had to remind myself, and it was a quote that says, and I must remember it now, your mind is the engine and your heart or your attitude is the fuel. And overall, that code actually spoke about the importance of protecting your mind and being resilient. And it also speaks to one of my favorite quotes or poem around our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. You know, who are you?
To not to be great, etc. Yeah, I think everybody knows that, right?
And who am I not
to be?
It's in my light. So for me, this is something that got me excited again. That for you to be able to win in life, your mental strength and resilience is of absolute great importance. If people can conquer your mind, or if circumstances can conquer your mind, you will collapse. But if you are able to bounce back, you will forever be in a position to conquer and push further. And that got me excited again.
Yeah.
And even though when, motherhood was, my new mother to two was showing me flames, I saw that, I was like, this thing, it won't win. Not in God's name. The child, and it was in that moment when you remember that and when you channel that, that you start to see that, they always say the difference between those that made it and those that didn't is the attitude and the willingness to move forward.
And to adapt.
We all get challenges. And therefore your mind, you must keep your mind sharp. You must protect it with everything else and always be optimistic.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. And then what's the one piece of advice that you got earlier on in your career, that you still reference to now in your advanced stage?
Somebody once told me, what got you here won't be what's going to take you further. That is the, I think, most important single piece of advice that I received. What got me to where I was at that point or where I am today is not what's going to take me forward. And therefore it comes back to the continuous self-improvement, being curious, and making sure that you are adapting and reinventing yourself with how the world is moving.
Wow. And then how do you handle self-doubt when it creeps in? Those moments when you're just not sure. What do they call it? I forgot. Self-imposter syndrome. That when you're just not sure or you're hesitant, maybe it's something new. I don't know. So how do you deal with that? Or how did you?
It goes back to, for me, I live by certain principles, and it goes back to the principles of understanding my why. And that's how I handle it. And it's easy, I've seen that it's easier when I speak about it like this to say understanding, because when you are going through it, that understanding your why will be right at the back of your head. But when you do have a community around you, and that for me has been what has also been important. My family is one of my greatest pillars, as well as my friends that are around me. With that, that's what has always helped me. Ability to speak to mentors, ability to speak to other people. That's what has helped me to remember why and actually start to push away the self-doubt. It might not be today, it might take time, but those are some of the things. And personally, I pray, I believe in God, and I find myself that as I pray and I engage with my higher being, that has helped me to become stronger and always remember that any situation will pass. No matter how hard it is, it will actually pass. And therefore, it's just a matter of actually going through the motions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Easier said than done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that it makes sense. Yeah. And then how do you think the finance world is changing for the better? Like, what role does innovation play in your current work?
So like with many other professions, artificial intelligence is one, automation is another, data analytics is also quite key. And this has been, as I've mentioned, that there's a lot of analysis and of comparison that we do in finance. You're comparing your current results to your prior month, to your prior year. You also forecast into the future. And the ability to use these tools and the innovations that have come in has actually led to efficiencies, has led to
being a bit more proactive than reactive, being a bit more insightful for our partners than reactive. And therefore, this is actually what is happening. A lot of the finance functions are actually working towards how do we bring in a lot of the artificial intelligence to do the mundane work so that we can actually get our people to be more involved in higher decisions and insights that will enable the business to actually make great decisions regarding the information. So that is what the actual change has been. You see artificial intelligence creeping in quite a lot. Finance and other careers have been identified to say they will probably most likely be affected by, same as law, for example, that will be affected by the innovation and as well as the technology. So that's why you need to, that's actually what's happening.
So where do you are you more excited about it, or is it more a scary thought? Where are you in the debate? Is it an exciting?
I'm excited because I can't remember where I was, but somebody said this has been happening for many years. Think of it back then with the different industrial revolutions when cars were brought in. It's always about your ability to adapt and see what opportunities are actually coming. If you are scared and saying, oh, my job is now, am I not going to have a job? And you are sticking to that and you are not now learning new things that are required for you to be relevant, then you'll be scared. But if you understand that I can use artificial intelligence for more high value decision making, and instead of me capturing, for lack of a better word, all the invoices on an Excel, we now can actually have artificial intelligence doing that. And what I can do out of that is actually analyze and see what the data is telling me and what are some of the things that we need to look for in the future. Then you won't be scared. So I'm actually a person that out of every what people might see as a disadvantage, actually opportunities are coming out of it. New industries are being created. And I think a typical example is, 20 years ago, we never had influencers. And out of technology actually moving and with everything else that is happening in the world, we are seeing that the social media space has grown. And today companies are hiring people to actually tweet and be their social media individuals. So there'll always be opportunities. You must just find.
Depends on how you look at it.
Exactly.
And adapt as well. Okay. And then the next question, I think you answered this, but I'm going to ask anyway. I don't know, maybe you have a different one. What's one financial concept or principle you think everyone should understand?
We did speak about it.
Yeah.
Compound
interest. I remember you. Yeah. Okay. And then how do you stay future ready in your leadership?
It's what I've mentioned. So there's a lot now that's available. And it's that micro learning that happens, on LinkedIn. There's always a lot of articles that are shared, attending conferences and speaking to a diverse group of people. For me, it's that and learning. So that's how you stay future ready, unfortunately. If you do not learn, you are going to be irrelevant.
Yeah. Okay, and then as you know, we're in the month of August. We're celebrating women, which is why you invited you to the podcast, of course.
One of my passions.
So what does being a woman in leadership mean to you?
For me, it means to be a trailblazer. It means to be the bridge. We stand on the shoulders of the women of 1956, and particularly in South Africa. And given where or what they have built for us, we owe it to ourselves to be bold, to be courageous, to make sure that we continue that legacy. They fought back then for us to not carry dumpers. Today, we are fighting for more representation in boardrooms. So you can see that it's about carrying different stride as the world actually moves forward. So for me, it's actually that. It's really about being the trailblazer and being a bridge, making sure that you are leaving this world better than you found it. I didn't have to carry a compass.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Because of someone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I hope that my nieces will not have to fight the fight of gender inequality, gender unequal pay. Those are the fights that we have to push today.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to other females, other women who are trying to climb the corporate ladder and trying to move into senior roles? You know, what message would you give them?
So in senior roles, I'll refer to what I said earlier. What got you to the table or to where you are today, and mainly being your technical skills, is not going to be what's going to get you to the C-suite. That's the first thing that I'll share with my ladies or the women in general. Secondly, is that you must advocate for yourself unapologetically. So
Yeah,
I had to say it. You must advocate for yourself unapologetically. So I believe that depending on where you grew up, we always grew up of my work must speak for itself. Ladies, it's not about the work speaking for itself. It's about advocating for your work. People knowing what you do, how you do it, and how brilliant you are. And if you don't advocate for yourself, unfortunately, we won't see you. People remember what is on the tip of their tongues, and as a result of that. So those are my two advices. Because in the C-suite, it's got to do a lot with softer skills, the ability to navigate, stakeholder management becomes quite key, the ability to read people, understand when, how to challenge how. And therefore, if you don't, that's going to be a challenge that some of us learned late in our careers, and we continue to learn as we move forward.
Yeah, that's powerful. And then how do you support or mentor young women within your industry, the finance as a whole or internal audit?
Yeah. So I do have quite a few people that I mentor. And for me, it's always been easier. One, it's listening. From a mentorship perspective, you're always listening to hear what are the challenges. Two, it's sharing my experiences. If I've either passed a similar type of journey or have seen some of the challenges that you are navigating or have experienced it through other people. And number three then is guiding, But last but not least, myself and a friend actually started a networking forum called Women in Audit, Finance and Governance, Risk and Control. And that was intentionally done to start to actually bridge the gap between those that know and those that don't know, those that need guidance and those that don't, those that have passed the journey and those that haven't. And we started it last year. I've obviously been on a maternity break now, but we are now going to continue and to pick it up because we do see the need. The need is a lot. The need is quite vast that we need to have the conversations. And one of the special things about what we were speaking about, myself and Komoto, was that we'll be engaging men in different aspects as we do different things. Because this is not a journey just for women, but it's a journey for the community as a whole in which we operate. So that's how I mentor and support women.
That's great. And then which women have influenced you or inspired your career path the most, or in general, not just your career?
So there is quite a few, but from an internal audit profession perspective, I need to make reference. We call her Mam Shelly Machaba, and it always holds a special place in my heart because back then in 2010 or 2009, when we had the global conference in South Africa, and I was one of the people at the conference that was giving out flyers or directing the delegates. I'll never forget, I was in one of the plenary sessions where she spoke, and I waited for her to be able to speak. After that, people want to speak to the speaker.
Yeah.
I waited in my yellow shirt, I'll never forget. And eventually she did give me time. And I never thought she would honor it, but she then said, contact my office and get an appointment. And I eventually did contact an office and I got an appointment. And from there, a bursary also resulted because I was studying internal audit because I had aspirations of joining. But with her, what I've seen is one, she's humble. Two, she's achieved quite a lot being humble, and she's really paved the way for many of us. There's a lot that she's done, and therefore she always aspires me to grow in this industry, looking at the different leadership roles that she's held, being a woman of color and where she is today as the CEO of PwC Southern Africa. So that's who inspires me.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, that's great, yeah. You're not the first actually to reference her, so yeah, it's quite powerful
She's
to know that
doing amazing things, and the impact she's having not just in our profession, but in just the communities at large is just amazing.
Yeah, that's great. And then looking at the next generation of women in internal audit, what gives you hope? What excites you about what they're doing?
Their fierceness, their boldness. I mean, you were referencing Refilwe. The other day we actually took a picture of the governors of the Johannesburg region, and it was actually all female for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So you can see how females are going out there and actually reaching for all these things that we didn't think we would achieve. That's what gives me hope, that there are actively people working towards elevating and transforming our profession.
Yeah. And then what legacy do you hope to leave behind, professionally or personally? Yeah.
Professionally, those that have known me, and hence I'm quite still involved with internal audit, is that I believe that as internal auditors, we can be the much needed strategic partners that we are meant to be for business. There is no one in all the assurance providers that sees the organization in the lens that internal audit does. But I don't think we've actually cracked that. Hence, we might still fall secondary to some people in the organization. In some areas, we might be seen as police or watchdogs. And that is the legacy that I want to leave in the profession. In the talks that I've had last year's conference, people know I was speaking about being strategic partners and adding real value to the organization. That's the legacy that I want to leave behind in the internal audit profession, where hopefully by the time when I retire, internal audit will be strategic partners and even in the next few years. Personally, and I was home recently, is making education fashionable. It's quite sad to see how quite a lot of the youth, or some of the youth, and particularly when I was home, we're involved. We want quick things. We want quick tenders. We want to be influencers. We're not looking at getting educated, having a qualification, and then venturing into business or into working into corporate or whatever it is. I always say that education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And that's a quote by Nelson Mandela. And I strongly believe in it. And therefore, that is my personal goal. And some of the things that I'm doing around it, the networking, the mentorships, is how, and I've been racking my brain around it. How do I go back to Mabopane and make education fashionable? So there was a call for action at the national conference, and I guess it's a call for action for myself and to get together with other professions from Mabopane as well as businesses around. How are we going to make Mabopane and how are we going to make education fashionable in Mabopane so that it starts to be seen as one of those townships where education is actually thriving, and we're having quite a lot of professions, business people coming from there.
Yes.
The legacy that I'd like to leave.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And then where to from here for you? CFO, you're a board member. Do you still even plan 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
I have aspirations. And I always say, the world is so vast. And one thing that I've learned is that never say never, because things change so fast. But I would like to be on more boards. That's the one thing. So that I can also share my knowledge and also make a difference. That's one. And professionally, I always say, and I've always said this, there's two pieces. A chief audit executive for one of the big banks, or a chief operating officer. So, because I see those roles for me as roles that I believe that in the things that I want to do and how I want to excel, this is where I want to land. So that's where I see myself. But as I've mentioned, I never saw myself as a CEO 5 years ago that I'm here. So I'm still open, but for me, those would be where I see myself in the coming years. I love the financial services space, and I'm looking forward to actually growing in the space.
Okay. Oh, great. All the best. Yeah. So now we've come to the end of our interview. Just finally, a message that you'd like to leave your peers with for this Women's Month. You can just look at the camera. If there's anything specific you want to say to them while we're celebrating women within the industry, outside, in general, the floor is yours.
Great. So for me, it's simple. And it also goes back to one of my favorite quotes, which is by James Keller. A candle loses nothing by lighting another. Therefore, I want to leave everyone with this. Go out there, light someone else's light. Make a difference in someone else's life. And it's through that we'll be able to build our communities and build our beautiful country to be what we want. And that's what I would like to leave everyone with, and our women in this Women's Month. Happy Women's Month.
Okay, thank you so much, Molebogeng. We've come to the end of our series, our episode. Thank you for taking time to come sit with us and talk to women in general, or the, people in the industry in general. I'm sure a lot of people will learn a lot from this conversation that we've just had.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me, and I look forward to engaging everyone and with more opportunities of this. Thank you.
And thank you, viewers. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share so we can grow our community. And remember, as Molebogeng said, remember to lift as you rise. You lose nothing from lighting another's candle. Thank you. Bye.